Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Today I'm going to present one of the interesting topics in Form 5 Physics, which is Chapter 6 Nuclear Physics. In particular, we are going to look at the subtopic of 6.2 Nuclear Energy. The main focus for today is we want to describe the generation of electrical energy in nuclear reactor and justify the use of nuclear energy as an alternative energy to generate electrical energy. Today, we are going to do open discussion on this topic as our country is still debating to use nuclear energy to generate electricity. Each day, you turn on a light, switch on the television, or use a cell phone. The one thing all three have in common is the need for a source of power or energy. Without power or energy, the light, television, or cell phone would not function, nor would many other products people throughout the world rely on every day. Anything with a power cord or battery needs energy, and the energy may be delivered to your home or product in several different ways. Of course, the batteries in a phone, flashlight, or cordless drill are a source of power, but they also need to be recharged with energy as they are used. Most of the energy, though, coming into your home or school comes from a power plant. Nowadays, most of developed countries are using alternative energy to generate electricity. So, what is alternative energy? Alternative energy is energy sources other than fossil fuels, including renewable sources and nuclear energy. Most power plants provide electricity either by using non-renewable energy such as fossil fuel from oil, gas, and coal, or renewable energy such as solar power from the sun, hydroelectric power from the moving water, geothermal power from underground heat, wind power from windmills, and other sources. This renewable energy is an alternative energy to generate electricity, and its sources are more favorable because they do not emit greenhouse gases or air pollutants, so they are clean source of energy. Most of these resources are both abundant and renewable. By using alternative fuel sources, we can conserve our non-renewable fuel sources like natural gas and oil. In this way, we can be more efficient in producing electricity and heat while protecting our environment. However, one of the most controversial and forgotten sources of energy is nuclear power, which provides about 11% of the world's energy needs and nearly 20% in the US. Nuclear energy is also one of the alternative energies in generating electricity. However, nuclear energy is not classified as a renewable energy source because it is mined from uranium and thorium elements, which cannot be replenished. Nuclear power is used throughout North America, parts of South America, Asia, and Europe, and a very small amount is generated in Africa. As of 2016, about 31 countries generate at least some amount of their electricity needs via nuclear power. Nuclear energy is an often misunderstood source of electricity. Sometimes, when people hear the word nuclear, they immediately think about nuclear bombs, atom bombs, and radiation. which of course can result in harmful consequences. However, nuclear energy has a long history of providing power. For homes, military ships, and submarines, nuclear power is very beneficial as these nuclear submarines receives its energy from a nuclear reactor. Battery-powered subs can only be submerged for a few days at a slow speed. On the other hand, a nuclear sub never needs to be refueled throughout their 25 years lifespans. They could stay underwater indefinitely, though only emerging for supplies, food, and for other reasons. The first large-scale nuclear power station opened in 1956 in Cumbria, England. One of the greatest advantages of nuclear power is that it can produce huge amounts of energy from small amounts of fuel. It also does not result in the pollution often associated with the burning of fossil fuels, such as oil or coal. A nuclear power plants work the same way as other power plants, except its energy comes from a different source, which is uranium. Uranium ore is a mineral and one of the more common elements found in the Earth's crust. It is a silvery gray metallic with very weak radioactive chemical elements. Uranium ore is mined from the ground like coal in open pit or underground mining. As uranium is a metal mined in various parts of the world, the enriched uranium is used by modern nuclear power plants. To understand how nuclear power works, we must understand the process of nuclear fission involved in nuclear power plants. As you know, the center of an atom is the nucleus and is composed of particles called protons and neutrons. Nuclear energy holds the tiny particles together, and in a process called nuclear fission, the splitting of the atom's nucleus takes place. As a result, the reaction drives the release of nuclear energy in power plants. Nuclear energy holds the tiny particles together, and in process called nuclear fission, the splitting of the atom's nucleus takes place. Each time an atom is split, the process releases more energy and more neutrons. A chain reaction occurs and the amount of energy increases. It is a controlled reaction, but if it is not controlled, a huge explosion can occur. The explosion of a nuclear bomb is the result of uncontrolled fission chain reaction. In short, controlled nuclear fission equals energy and electricity. Uncontrolled nuclear fission equals major problems. When it is controlled, the nuclei of large, unstable atoms such as the uranium are bombarded, and instead of using a coal or oil to produce electricity, the splitting of the uranium atoms and the chain reaction leads to the production of the electricity. Instead of other types of power plants that use fossil fuels, a nuclear power plant is used to generate electricity. The plant contains a nuclear reactor, which generates the electricity by controlled fission reactions. The specific enriched metal, called uranium-235, is used as fuel, and because the uranium availability is limited, nuclear power is a non-renewable, which it takes millions of years to replace, and its chain reaction produces heat energy. Next, water is pumped into the reactor core to absorb the heat energy that is produced by the nuclear fission. The boiling of water produces high-pressure steam. This steam will be channeled to the turbine. Then, the turbine is rotated by the high-pressure steam, which in turn rotates the magnet or coil in the generator. Later on, the steam will condense into water. Lastly, the electrical energy generated is sent consumers via a power supply transmission system. There are a few safety features that we have to consider if we are going to use nuclear reactor to generate electricity. For safety features, we can use thick concrete walls to prevent radioactive radiations from leaking into the surroundings. We can also use water as a cooling agent, where it can absorb heat energy from the chain reactions to generate steam. This can control the reactor temperature. Other than safety features, we also have to control or rate of nuclear reaction by using control route. This route controls the reaction rate by absorbing excess neutrons. If the reactions in step 1 produce too much heat, control routes are inserted to absorb neutrons and slow the chain reaction, and it is made of boron or cadmium. We can also use moderator to slow down the fast-moving neutrons released so that nuclear fission can occur, and it is made from materials such as graphite or water. Advantages of nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plants generate electricity without producing air pollution. Unlike fossil fuel-fired power plants, nuclear reactors do not produce carbon dioxide or other chemicals, and it does not contribute to the greenhouse effect. As we can see, the smoke come from the nuclear power plant is not pollution, but just a steam released to the air. Next, it is inexpensive to produce, as it costs about the same as coal. Third, nuclear power plant produces large amounts of energy from very small amounts of fuel. Lastly, it produces very little waste, and nuclear power is reliable. Now, let's look at disadvantages of nuclear power plant. The waste of nuclear power plant is radioactive, meaning medium or high levels of radiation damage the cells of the body, and it can lead to short and long-term illnesses and eventually death. Although there is a little waste, it is extremely dangerous and must be sealed and buried for thousands of years for the radioactivity to die away. Though it is reliable, costs are high for keeping the process safe, and if something does go wrong, a nuclear accident can be a major disaster. During the 1990s, nuclear power was the fastest growing energy source in most of the world, but by 2005, it became the second slowest growing. The change may have been the result of accidents at nuclear power plants. In 1986, an accident at the Chernobyl plant in Ukraine, which is part of the Soviet Union, led to a disaster. Due to worker error, too much heat was produced and the fuel rods melt, a condition known as a nuclear meltdown. Part of the plant exploded and radioactive dust was released into the air. The explosion itself killed 31 people, but thousands of other people in the area developed cancer and other illnesses caused by the radiation. Since then, there have been no other accidents like Chernobyl, and most nuclear power plants are now much safer. However, smaller accidents at a few plants since Chernobyl has concerned many people. In 1945, the world has witnessed a devastating catastrophe when nuclear energy is used to produce nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons were once used during World War II by the United States against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These images show the effect of atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. Many of the survivors of this bombing suffered the effects of radiation as a result of this atomic bombing. As with all energy sources, there are advantages and disadvantages in their use, whether related to the cost and safety or the environmental impact. The future of nuclear energy is uncertain, but with new technology, strict safety procedures, and disaster prevention, nuclear energy can be safe and economical, with costs continuing to decrease. So, after learning this topic and understanding the advantages and disadvantages caused by nuclear power plant, in your opinion, should nuclear energy be used as an alternative source to generate electrical energy in Malaysia? That's all from me today. Thank you for lending me your ears. Bye!